And now Lindsey Crosby of AuburnDaily.com and Locked On MLB Prospects joining us here for the final few minutes on Locked On Auburn. And man, I think the talking point is clear. The Auburn Tigers heading to the Super Regional. The Auburn Tigers that were projected to finish last in the SEC have found a way when there's just 16 teams left. The Auburn Tigers are still there, Lindsey.
Yeah. LSU didn't make it. Vanderbilt didn't make it. As we know, because now we have to travel to Oregon. But Auburn has obviously beat UCLA, is going into the Super Regionals for, fun fact, the third time in the last 5 years. And one of those, we didn't have a postseason. So really, the third time out of the last 4 tournaments, Auburn has made the Super Regionals. Baby, we're a blue blood at this point.
Incredible. But that's what was so crazy about Auburn not hosting a regional since 2010, because they've been good since Butch Thompson's been here, but Butch Thompson hadn't been able to host a regional before while at Auburn. So that's what was kind of so surreal about it. But Lindsey, you and I talked about this a little bit on the show yesterday, just how electric and how incredible Plainsman Park was throughout the weekend. And man, the guys on the diamond, they answered it. They answered it every step of the way. The offense, it seems like everybody got on base every time they went up to bat. Like it was an incredible run of offense, an absolute explosion. And the pitching stepped up when it needed to. I mean, it was just a solid, dominant weekend for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, and to write the piece that's up now at auburndaily.com, kind of recapping the weekend and then previewing the Super Regional, I was in there pulling the stats. Every single lineup regular had multiple hits. Every single lineup regular scored runs. Auburn scored 51 runs in 3 games, and they were plus 33 in run differential over these 3 games.
And it would have been worse if they didn't have to pause the UCLA game in the 6th inning and resume the next day, because Auburn smelled blood. There was no way UCLA was scoring. Mason Barnett was absolutely on fire. I mean, it was just an impressive outing. Yeah. Props
in the piece. There's a great thing from Butch about the outing and about what they changed mid outing to make it more effective. And so when you see him go out there in the 4th and in the 5th and in the 6th, and he's just rolling. At one point, he had retired. I want to say it was 12 or 13 straight Bruins. They made one little minor mechanical tweak to what he was doing mid game. Butch just walked over to him for the end and said, "Hey, why don't you try this?" Boom, done. And Butch talked about in the post game that, this is the game that won. It's the best outing of Mason Barnett's career.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances, given the stage, given the opponent, given the circumstances, best outing of his career, and the one that cemented him as a guy who's going to get picked in the MLB draft and is going to go higher than people expect come July.
Yeah, people like his traits a ton. I mean, is he a strikeout guy? I mean, he certainly was. He certainly was in the start against UCLA, but I just don't really remember him being that much of a strikeout guy consistently throughout the season.
So his issue was he wouldn't always be able to land the curveball for strikes, and then he'd be a little inefficient. And so he was striking guys out while he was in there, but his outings would end early because his pitch count would get up. And then we saw in this, he comes out in the 6th, and I want to say he's at maybe 80 something pitches because he's just been mowing guys down because he's landing the curveball. The fastball is working elevated in the zone. And it's just, he's got the full repertoire. He's got all 4 pitches working for him, the slider, the changeup's there. And he turned it on to another level. And if that's the Mason Barnett that we're going to get on Friday Friday or Saturday, we don't actually know which day it starts, but if we're going to get that for the Super Regionals, we have a really good chance at beating a Cooper Yerpe, the ace for Oregon State, who will undoubtedly throw on Friday night.
Yeah, and that'll be an exciting matchup for sure, especially to see, can this Auburn offense keep doing what it's doing? Obviously, it's going to drop off some because this is more like a traditional 3-game series. It's not, people on their 6th or 7th pitchers on the second day type thing. It's a different environment. This is more like what they've been used to seeing week in and week out throughout the SEC season. But it's still, you got to love the momentum that Auburn has leaving the region. I mean, Oregon State, they had to scrap and claw. I mean, you could definitely tell they weren't comfortable. Vandy gave them everything they possibly could. That was a back and forth game.
They brought Cooper back on 2 days rest to throw 2 innings to steal this win on Monday. And when you watch this matchup, like these teams are very, very similar. So Oregon State, just kind of like Auburn as far as power goes, they've got that one guy with double-digit home runs. They've got Jacob Melton. We've got Sonny DeShera, and everybody else is in the high single digits. Batting average is kind of similar to where Auburn's is. Still slugging right there where Auburn's is. The only difference is they're top 3 in the country in walks. And so because of that, they have more opportunities to steal, and they play on turf. So
oh no,
kind of a replica of what we saw at Kentucky. The ball is going to be a bit faster. The guys will have a little bit better footing. But this is all going to come down, again, as we said so many times, to the arm of Nate LaRue. And what can he do from the catching position to slow down this running game?
Yeah, and he had a good weekend. He had a good weekend as well. The comments that Butch made after Auburn secured the regional.
Ooh.
I mean, there was a moment there, and there was a lot of good stuff. Of course, proud of his guys. You know, you mentioned changing the approach and all of that, but he said, Omaha's great, but it's national championship or bust. Mm-hmm. And it's time, if you just go there with the mindset of Omaha, it's all about Omaha, you're going to go 0-2 like Auburn did in 2019. That's what he referenced. This program now is at the point where it's like, why not? Like, we deserve this. The way Auburn played this weekend. And Lindsay, what was the storyline going into this weekend? What was the toughest regional to get out of? It's what everybody was saying.
Oh, it was Auburn's. And UCLA was picked to win it, not Auburn.
Yep. And so you just look at it, it's like, man, they did it. They absolutely dominated the toughest draw of all the national seeds. And that storyline's going to go away, but Auburn folks will remember that.
Yeah. And the big thing to me is, and Butch referenced the environment being like a football or basketball environment. And kind of in that same vein, Butch mentioned how the expectations at some point in time have to move. And it can't just be Omaha, but the expectations have to be national championship. And great quote he said. He's like, people don't fail because they aim high and miss. They fail because they aim low and hit. Whew. And so given the last 4 tournaments, we have made super regionals in 3 of them and the College World Series in 1, possibly 2 this year. I think we are at the point where we need to say that going forward, the expectation of this program is national championship. That is where Auburn is right now. We need to understand that. The national media doesn't get that. We get that. But I think now other people are going to realize that is what this program's about.
So what are you looking for? Just one last thing. What are you looking for as Auburn gets ready to travel virtually to the other side of the world and take on Oregon State?
Thanks for nothing, Vandy. So one, I want to see, does this offense continue? And it's something where we took advantage of some bad defenses. Southeastern Louisiana had some injured guys. UCLA's been okay. Florida State's had a bad defense. I talked about that in the preview. Oregon State defensively is very much like Auburn. They actually have a fielding percentage better than Auburn's. They're in the top 10, same as we are. Yeah. And so can Auburn make it work against a team that's not giving away free runners via errors, via defensive miscues, and via walks? That's going to be the real thing. If Auburn continues to hit like they did, they're going to score runs. But my question is going to be, what's it going to look like when you're not getting all of that extra help that you got this weekend? Because Auburn, Florida State walked 16 Auburn Tigers. 16. I actually asked Brody Bourne in postgame, I'm like, is it hard to focus on hitting when if you just stand there, they'll walk you anyway? And he was like, we kind of have to try, do extra work to stay in our process because we want to hit. We want to find a pitch to hit and drive. And so I'm confident in the coaching, but it's just, that's going to be the big thing to me is what does it look like when you're facing a team of, I'm going to say equal talent versus one where you were facing a lower level defense or lower level pitching over the weekend. What's that going to look like? That's going to be the big battle here. And I think ultimately it's going to be close. I think it's probably going to go all 3 games.
Yeah, I think it will. And interestingly enough, if you would have asked me this a few weeks ago, I would have said that probably hurts Auburn's chances. But now I think Auburn feels really good about its bullpen. I think they have several guys that they feel super confident with.
Yeah, the big thing that I took away from this weekend is the state of pitching is better for Auburn than I think we expected. We all know Joseph Gonzalez has been great. Trace Bright has pitched really well. But if this is the Mason Barnett that you are going to get, then you have 3 legitimate, very, very good pitchers to lead your rotation. And then you have confidence in a Skipper and a Burkhalter, but you have new confidence in an Alsup and an Armstrong and some of the younger guys. And so there's a nice blend, and it's all kind of come together. And this is what they intended to do last year before they lost the top 3 veteran starting pitchers to injury and had to run out the young guys. This is what it was supposed to look like last year. But you have to feel really good about the pitching depth, and I think more pitching depth than Oregon State has. They don't even have an established closer. They had to bring in their ace on 2 days rest to come out and close that game today because they didn't have someone that they trust. So if there's any sort of advantage, they have the advantage when it comes to walks and getting on base. So the only difference really there is on base percentage is higher. We have the advantage when it comes to depth of pitching, especially out of the pen. So let's see what happens there. It's going to be a great matchup.